Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hold on. Let me get rid of that. There we go. I am joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield.
Just never going to change that intro, are you? It's just what we got.
It's what we got. You haven't given me some sort of catchphrase I can throw out there. Hope everyone's doing well.
You could just say my name. Joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Eleanor Goldfield. You don't want me to say you're amazing?
I don't think I need I don't think I need a quantifier because my name is enough, isn't it?
Is it though? Hello, everybody.
Dick.
You're the one who said I didn't need to show up today. Hello, everybody.
Wow.
Welcome.
Because he's tired. I was trying to be nice. Jesus Christ on a cracker. Forgive me for being caring.
Oh, this live streaming gig ain't all it's cracked up to be. Hope you're doing well out there. We got a lot of stories to cover. We're gonna get to something a little you call it a little deeper than just kind of like the day-by-day news, which is why are we all fucking working so hard? We're gonna get to that in a little bit, but let's talk about some of the day's news first. I can't tell if this is a silly story or not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a sign of fascism, but we'll start with this one.
Can we just, it's both.
Can't fascism be silly? Can it?
That's my point.
Okay.
So this story, okay, I'm just going to read the headline.
Read the headline.
The Coast Guard disputes claim. Wait, that's not. Oh, that's not the headline that I was. Okay.
That's the one you sent.
Right. But the real headline is the U.S. Coast Guard will reportedly no longer consider swastikas, nooses, or the Confederate flag to be hate symbols. They changed this headline, by the way. It says
they changed this headline. Now they say the Coast Guard is disputing this.
Right. But I find this funny because, of course, people in keffiyehs are considered anti-Semites, but now you can wander around with a swastika. And here's the thing.
Well, what they're going off here is some sort of guidance within the Coast Guard handbook. I don't know what they have. Pamphlet. This stuff has disappeared, like the stuff that says you can't have swastikas.
And let's be clear here. Anybody who's ever seen, cops or indeed military will know that these kind of symbols, perhaps not the outright swastika, but other sort of fascist symbols and white supremacist symbols have long been a part of law enforcement in the military. I remember when I lived in LA, this was back when like Black Lives Matter started, and what was that, like 2013 or something? There was
I don't think it was that early. Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Right after Occupy?
Yeah, I mean, it started under Obama. Anyway, so I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But there was uproar because several LAPD officers had been found to have tattoos that were white supremacist. Same thing when I lived in DC. There was uproar because cops were walking around with shirts that had fascist and white supremacist symbols on it. So it's not
some of the sneakier ones.
It's not like this is new or unusual or aberrant. It's the fact that the idea of just removing the guidelines that say, hey, just don't like bring a swastika to work kind of vibe, that's disappearing along with
bring a swastika to work day is actually this Friday. But other than that, don't do it.
But yeah, so I just found this is like one of those things where it's like, this is not really changing the lived experiences of anyone, also because these systems have always been fascist and white supremacist. But it's interesting because at the same time they're saying this, they're still saying that people wearing keffiyehs and Palestinian flags and saying things like from the river to the sea are anti-Semites.
So under the guidelines reported by the paper, those symbols, swastikas, nooses, etc., would be considered potentially divisive, while the Confederate flag will remain banned.
2013.
When Black Lives Matter started? Okay. Yeah. Then you win this round, Goldfield.
Boom.
Yeah. I thought it was like a year later or something. Anyway, So let's keep moving along. This next story is going to get us into some possible changes in the proxy war in Ukraine. But we'll start off with what France has announced.
Dude. So France is, I don't understand how military works in our own country in terms of rank, but I certainly don't know how it works in France, but this is the top general, so whatever that means. The chief of the defense staff, General Fabien Mandon, has been roundly condemned in France for telling local mayors that the country needed to be prepared to accept the death of its children if it was going to deter further Russian aggression following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
Further Russian aggression, as if Russia has ever gave any inkling that this was about anything other than Ukraine. As if they were like, and then we invade France.
And so this is the latest episode in the Let Your Children Die for US Empire, because of course the reason that this proxy war is going on in Ukraine is because of NATO and because of the expansion of US empire, just continuously desperately poking the Russian state. And so now France has made it again. This is kind of like the last story, like it being allied with NATO and being open to, latching yourself onto US empire has kind of implicitly said that you're willing to send your children to die for US empire. But then this guy just comes out and says it. So, and I think that this is, I posted about this yesterday, and I basically said, I tagged the Swedish defense ministry, and I said, are you ready to send Swedish children to die for US empire? They have not responded, but
I'm sure you'll get a personalized letter in the mail.
Yeah. But this is what I mean. And I wrote about this when Sweden was debating joining NATO and not allowing the people to vote on it. Of course, I wrote about this for Swedish and Norwegian media that, as a child of empire, having grown up in the US, I know what it is to see children my own age being sent to die for the US empire's bottom line. Is that really something you want to see in your own country? And of course, that's not at all mentioning the horror that is unleashed on the people on the receiving end of that violence.
And this is part of continuing the propaganda that has kept this proxy war going for years now, that has kept hundreds of thousands dying in both Ukraine and Russia. This is the propaganda they've tried to sell to the French people. Now, I don't know the percentages of the French that have bought into this. Some have, some haven't. But this idea that, oh my God, we need to murder Russians because they're coming for us next. And, this insanity, as opposed to actually knowing the history of how this conflict started, where it came from, every moment of U.S. involvement that goes back to way before even 2014. It really is just part of this, garbage propaganda. And it's interesting that this general says, well, look, this is important. Russia's going to invade us next. We got to send our children to die. And people are like, just could you hold on 1 second there?
Well, and all it's I mean, because I grew up with this, I grew up hearing about this because the Russia was always the boogeyman in Sweden, right? And it's kind of like this joke. You can see the Russian U-boats in the Stockholm archipelago. You can't. But it was this joke. They're going to invade any time. But then they didn't, because why? And so this idea that they're all of a sudden going to do it now, it's like, no, they're not. No, why why to get your fermented herring? It's so absurd. I'm not saying Sweden doesn't have good herring. It's just the fermented shit has got to go. But it is so absurd. And weren't
they handing out pamphlets recently saying people should build a bunker?
They weren't handing them out, Lee. They spent millions of crowns mailing everybody a pamphlet about what to do when Russia invades. I'm not kidding. This was several years ago, though.
And it was throw fermented herring at them, right? It was projected.
That I would actually have appreciated as a really good, use what you got war tactic. But no. And around the same time, for the first time in my life, I saw ads for the Swedish military. There's never been ads for the Swedish military. And so this is really, really sick and twisted. And I'm not going to delve into the economics of this because that's a totally different conversation. But But yeah, it's absolutely absurd. And like, even if you just barely scratch the surface, you don't even have to go through the layers like we sometimes do on this show or that Lee does. You just barely scratch the surface and you're like, why would Russia invade? I don't know. I don't think.
Yes, that's well, the reason they are fighting with Ukraine is just because they want to steal things. They just love stealing shit.
Well, they just love
Just 'cause.
invading places because they're always the one to invade, right? In the past, like 300
the
years.
U.S. never does anything.
Always.
The U.S. Have you ever watched West Wing, the TV show? The U.S. in international incidents never does anything to anyone. It's just shit happens to them. Where like the U.S. is always like, what? Why? So this is an easy segue into there seems to be some movement on the possible peace or headed towards some sort of peace between Ukraine and Russia. But this New York Times article is about how Zelensky's in a tough spot because he has to choose between peace and losing an ally, or however they phrase it.
This is kind of like they're phrasing it a bit like The Bachelor. Oh, the difficult choice.
Yeah.
Who's gonna make it to the final?
yeah, reality show. A U.S.-Russian proposal would require Kiev to give up territory and reduce its army. If Moscow complies with the terms, it could receive benefits, including reintegration into the global economy. So this is part of Trump's attempted plan. Now, Zelensky continues, and most of Europe continue to fight against this possible plan. This is how it was always going to end. This doesn't mean it is going to end next week, but this is how it was always going to end, is with Russia getting a guarantee that Ukraine would never be part of NATO, Russia getting a Ukrainian government that is not Nazis, and Russia at least creating some sort of independent land in the Donbass. These things were all going to happen. It was just how many people do you want to die until they happen? And they say Zelensky faced a difficult choice. Really, the truth is he probably knows, and I'm sure the Nazis surrounding him have told him quite clearly that basically, if he signs any peace agreement, he's dead or maybe at best penniless. And we see
the U.S. isn't going to protect.
And we see what happens to these leaders, whatever you want to call them, strongmen leaders. Sometimes unelected if they useful idiots. Sometimes unelected if they got rid of elections, like Zelensky did. But we see what happens to them when the U.S. is done with them, when they've served their purpose of draining Russia for a few years, etc. And they're no longer needed. They often get bayoneted in the streets. They get executed. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, Noriega put in a prison. Once you've served your purpose to the U.S. empire, then it's over. Now, Zelensky has heavily enriched himself during this whole thing, stealing. It seems like him and his people or his administration have stolen hundreds of millions, if not way more.
Oh, and doesn't his family he bought his family a house in the occupied West Bank too?
I didn't know that.
I think he did. Because fascists flock together.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds right. Anyway, so what will happen to Zelensky if he ever signs a peace deal and he has an actual election? And of course, Ukrainians aren't going to want him at all.
Do you think he's going to go back to his comedy career?
Yeah, I think he'll go back to dressing up like a penis on late night TV. Literally, there was a sketch where he dressed as a penis. So
how prophetic.
Yeah, I know. Too bad there wasn't one like that for Trump.
Does he need it? I think he still looks like he's dressed as a penis.
It's more like a jack-o'-lantern penis, I feel like. Well, he's orange and it's just
I feel that's quite rude to pumpkins because I think pumpkins are quite cute.
It's insulting to both pumpkins and dicks. Okay, so sentences you didn't think you were going to hear today.
That's why y'all tune in, isn't it?
So let's move on to another movement in international affairs that seems kind of surprising, is that Trump is suddenly now mentioning that there might be talks with Maduro, whereas the entire, U.S. fleet is gearing up for continued illegal strikes on Venezuela. Orinoco Tribune covered this. Trump said, "Whoever wants to talk to Venezuela, we will talk face to face." He also, and I don't quite understand this sentence, whether he's saying this or not. It says he also reflected that political lobbies in Washington want, quote, President Trump. Was he referring to himself in the third person?
I think this is Maduro.
Maduro said political lobbies in Washington want President Trump to make the biggest mistake of his life and take military action. Oh, that would make more sense if it was Maduro that said this, but which would be the political end of his leadership in his name. And there is a definite rift in kind of the ruling elite in America over how best to go forward with Venezuela. And, obviously the oil is one of the biggest issues here. And you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So, and folks can, if you want to hear more about this, I did a great interview with Leonardo Flores, who's Venezuelan, and before the Venezuelan embassy was shut down, worked at the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C., and has been a longtime analyst and political expert regarding Venezuela. And we basically talked about this, and he said that there's a rift in Washington, and there has been for quite some time, about how to deal with Venezuela, right? So you have the likes of little man Marco Rubio, who just wants to bomb the crap out of, well, everyone, and because he wants to feel tall, and then you have the other side, including the likes of Chevron, who recently got a the permission, an oil lease inside Venezuela, and it was the first one in quite a while, actually. And this was right before they started blowing up fishermen in the Caribbean. So there is this extreme back and forth about how to deal with it. And here's the thing. Of course, the US could try to just bomb the crap out of Venezuela and then take its oil. But there is this feeling on the business side that the best thing to do is work with them, because they've already, the US military has already acknowledged that they can't just do a ground invasion. That would be a total disaster for the US. So they would do aerial bombing. What is that going to do to the infrastructure that you're hoping to use for said oil? So really, the argument is, let's not bomb the shit out of them. Also, you don't know at that point what the likes of Russia and China might do to address that fact.
I know. Well, what would China's response be if the U.S. fully invaded Venezuela?
Right. So basically, the idea is, let's deal with them on the corporate level. And of course, this is not to say they want to have good deals. Oh no, with Venezuela.
It's still a gun to their head.
It's not like, hey, we want to pay you fairly, or hey, we want to actually work with you on equal footing. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that Chevron are the good guys. They're always the bad guys. But so in between these two bad guys, there's a difference of opinion of how to deal with Venezuela as the quote unquote backyard of the US, which is how the US views it. Lee.
Calling me. And the way Chris Hedges has phrased this kind of rift in the ruling elite, he wasn't talking about Venezuela, but he phrased it as Trump is creating a rift between the oligarchs and the corporatists. And the corporatists, and I don't love the terminology, and I'll say why in a second, but the corporatists want stability, so that they can continue to pillage not just foreign countries, but you and me. I mean, the American people are being pillaged every single day. Our labor hours, our life force is drained to enrich giant, disgusting human beings like Elon Musk. And they want some level of stability, because that's how they're able to make these systems of extraction. Now, the oligarchs enrich themselves off of chaos and off of collapse, like vultures picking on the carcass. And so Trump and several of these others are oligarchs who are fine with taking a wrecking ball to everything, because it continues to enrich them. I mean, we see Trump talking about his real estate deals in Gaza following a genocide. So it's so that's how Hedges phrases it. I don't love I think there is a rift on those two sides. I don't love the terms of corporatist versus oligarch, because I think most of, if not all of the oligarchs are corporate leaders. Most of them. I mean, even Trump, his name is a corporation. Many of these people, Elon Musk, who's taking a wrecking ball to the government, is a definite corporatist. Most of his money comes from a massive corporation and stocks. So I think it's just the terminology that I don't love, but the idea is the same. There is a faction of the ruling elite that wants to feast on the carcass. There's a faction of the ruling elite that wants stability. And this goes for Venezuela. A lot of them, as you were talking about with the oil deals, they know that, like, okay, let's say you go in horrifically, like full on US campaign in Venezuela, bombing. It's fucking awful.
Scorched earth.
Scorched earth is fucking awful. It's not like it's going to be stable. It's going to end up like Libya or something, or Iraq. It's going to be factions fighting US invasion. It's going to be horrific. And that's not good for corporate extraction. They have a lot of trouble operating in that realm. So.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, when we say stability, we don't mean like
not the good kind of
egalitarian stability. We mean the kind of stability like you'll see in, I don't know, the US, like in Detroit. That is a stability that allows the system to keep feeding off of the most marginalized while, avoiding revolution. So that kind of stability, not like the kind of stability we'd like to see.
So it's possible that, I'll just wrap up on this topic with this. It's possible that Trump is kind of like, basically his internal people that have intelligence in Venezuela are going, look, if we bomb and try and invade Venezuela, it's going to be like a catastrophe of tremendous proportions. And we may actually look like the losers in this thing. And so Trump doesn't want to look like a loser. And so it's possibly his people telling him that. And so he goes, oh, well, let's go back to just stealing their oil with a deal. Now that could be one option. It could be that Trump's a genius, and from day one, this was a good cop, bad cop scenario. And he was like, I'm going to make it look like I'm going to invade them. Then when I say, guess what? We don't want to invade you. We just want to steal your oil. They'll go, oh, thank God. What a great idea. Here's the oil. Could be that he's a genius. No comment on that one? For those of you listening to the podcast, Eleanor is shaking her head no. So you're not leaning towards Trump's a genius situation. So.
I'm gonna plead the fifth while I still can.
All right, let's do some updates on Gaza, and then in a few minutes, we're going to get to why we all need to be working a lot less, and what is it about this system that has us all working so goddamn hard. But let's talk about Gaza for a few minutes. Thanks everybody for supporting the show. Thanks everybody leaving comments. Even if your comment is nonsensical, even if it's just you banging your head on the keyboard, it still kind of helps. Still
Infinite number of monkeys.
Yeah, one of you is going to write Shakespeare if you just bang your heads on the keyboard simultaneously.
Okay.
Eleanor thankfully has sent this information via Instagram, the best platform on the world for reading tiny little pages.
I feel like I have to do at least one Instagram
or at least 7
a
sometimes.
week. Otherwise, I don't feel like I'm giving you enough fodder for your extreme, like, virulent hatred.
Yep. This brings it out.
So, this is a post by So Informed. They do good work. This is actually from a while ago. So this is from November 12th. So it's already old. And
by a while ago, 1 week, which in our news cycle seems like a while ago.
More than a week, right? It's like 10 days.
Oh my God.
9 days.
Let's move on. This is getting ugly.
Okay. So basically the death toll is impossible to know, right? According to the Ministry of Health, which again, and I've covered this on this show, on other shows many times, the death toll is based on identified bodies, right? So the identified bodies are at 69,182. But as pointed out by a doctor and a professor who calculated the total death based on a bunch of different research and information, they suggest that it's 680,000, including 380,000 children under the age of 5.
Yeah, and Stephen Donziger's analysis using the Lancet Medical Journal comes to over 500,000. So.
Yeah, so the total numbers are obviously far above the number identified, but that's also why it's qualified as identified dead. And some other numbers that are horrific and also a low count. 170,694 people injured, as reported by the Gaza Health Ministry. More than 1,700 healthcare workers have been killed. Again, Israel purposely targets healthcare workers and journalists and storytellers, people who have a voice, who have reach. 579 is the total number of aid workers that have been killed, 252 total number of journalists. And again, these are all undercounts. There have documented, again, this is documented, 92% of homes have been destroyed. 92%. Like, just imagine looking at like a part of whatever the downtown of your city looks like, and imagine 92% of buildings being leveled.
And as I wrote in my recent Substack, it's equivalent to 6 Hiroshima atomic bombs dropped on a place the size of New Jersey.
It's smaller than New Jersey.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking Israel's the size of New Jersey. So
I was like, wait,
yeah,
it's like
so
12 miles long.
Yeah, so Gaza's far smaller. Sorry.
Yeah. 95% of school buildings, 88% of commercial buildings, 87% of water wells. Again, this is, and you see this in the West Bank too. Israel targets any kind of infrastructure that could be used to survive. So water wells, and this includes also desalination. There was a desalination plant that was, or structure that was right on the coast there that they targeted. This is, I mean, they want people to die of thirst and die of hunger.
Thank you. Mick says Gaza is smaller than Essex County in New Jersey.
I don't know that.
Because, you don't have to address it. You can just keep going.
But again, it's 12 miles long. Okay. So 156 hospitals and clinics. 156 hospitals and clinics. 87% of cropland. There are currently no fully functioning hospitals in Gaza. Only 17 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are partially functional. 90% of Gaza's olive trees have been destroyed. 88% of Gaza's field crops have been destroyed. Israel has violated the ceasefire agreement at least 280 times between October 10th and November 10th. That's even more now, of course, because they have continued bombing since November 10th. And
they've killed a lot during that time.
Yes. Killing at least 242 Palestinians. But again, this is an undercount. And they're also continuing to block critical aid into Gaza, the UN announced on November 11th. And I wrote a recent Substack piece about the UN, so the UN can go F itself, especially when it pulls this kind of information, right? That Israel is not allowing baby formula and over 1 million syringes for vaccinations. They're blocking that, and the UN says that, and then it votes unanimously to accept Trump's Gaza plan without the presence or input of any Palestinians. Go fuck yourself. The World Food Program reports that only half of the needed amount of food is being allowed into Gaza.
And that, when they say needed amount of food, they're talking about the amount that was agreed upon in the ceasefire, but that amount that was agreed upon in the ceasefire is far less than the amount needed for an actual healthy, sustainable society. The estimate for that is 1,000 trucks a day. The agreement in the ceasefire was 600 trucks a day, and it says only about 145 per day are currently allowed in.
Shelter and winter materials are also being blocked, and this comes after extreme rainfall, torrential rainfall, which caused flooding and basically tents to be completely destroyed. People are not getting access to new tents. And just think about that for a second. Like, we're talking about people living in tents that can't get access to tents, who should be living in homes. Like, it's so horrific that we're arguing over a tent flap, the ability for a human being to have a tent flap. And I know that we can't like get stuck on this because otherwise we will be paralyzed with despair. But I think it's important every now and then to just zoom out and be like, what in the fuck are we actually talking about?
I know, because I think when you zoom out and you think about it, you're like, wow, they really are trying to normalize genocide. And when I say they, I don't just mean Israel. I mean a lot of the US, a lot of the mainstream media, a lot of Western media. The number of these groups trying to normalize genocide is unbelievable.
And of course, as we covered on the show last week, briefly, a new report revealed systematic rape and sexual torture of Palestinian hostages by the Israeli occupation forces. More than 3 million life years have been lost in Gaza. I would say stolen.
We covered that as well.
As a result of Israel's genocide. Gaza faces a severe water shortage, as I mentioned, because they target the water infrastructure and they're not allowing new infrastructure to be built or fixed. So yeah, I think it's really important to highlight that the genocide is not over. It has simply been repackaged and repurposed. And this is something that Israel has been doing for decades. Basically, it does something so horrific, people can't believe it. And then it backs up a little bit. It's like 2 steps forward towards, towards more terrorism and more grotesque actions. And then it'll take a quarter of a step back and make everybody
We're not going to bomb as much.
Right. And make everybody think, okay, well, that's fair. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's not.
Or we'll release 1,700 of the 10,000 hostages we're holding, and we'll call that progress.
At the same time that they have officially voted to allow the killing of Palestinian hostages when they were doing that anyway. I mean, they were murdering them anyway. But
well, I was going to say, in terms of a step back, here's them taking a step forward. Al Jazeera is reporting that Israel has been moving the yellow line further in. They already had put this yellow line. This is, I did a Substack article on it, but I'm sure you've probably read it elsewhere. The way Gaza is being divided under the UN accepted plan that Trump put forward that basically allows for 58% of Gaza to be fully ethnically cleansed and is now like owned by Israel and the US and some other countries. There's basically no surviving Gazans in it anymore. So you've got 42% that remains where all the Gazans are now crammed. And that, in order to demarcate where that is, Israel's been putting down these yellow barriers. Well, now they're moving the yellow barriers further in so that they can steal more and more because they are completely unaccountable. Like, who is going to stop them? The international community's done fuck all. The U.S. isn't going to stop them. So who's going to stop them from moving this yellow line every day? I mean, so yeah, Al Jazeera is reporting that the yellow line has advanced 300 meters beyond the so-called yellow line where it was supposed to be. And the thing is, we don't live in the 1800s. There are GPS systems. You can tell exactly where this line was supposed to be, and they just keep moving it.
Well, even if it was the 1800s, they had measuring.
No, they had no measuring sticks back then. Zero. They would just look at it and go, "Hey, looks right. Looks right to me. Look right to you. Look right to you." Yeah.
That's how they
Now, if you go back to the ancient Egyptians, they knew how to measure some shit.
Oh, that's because it was ancient aliens, Lee. I
know, it was aliens. Since we're on the topic, I'll take a moment to promote my Substack and your Substack. I posted, it's a shortening and republishing of an article I put up earlier, but people have very much been thinking it's important and sharing it. I don't want to say enjoying it. No one enjoys the horror show that I'm talking about, but it's titled "Israel Knew About October 7th Beforehand and Let It Happen. Here's All the Proof." And it's filled with links, interviews with former IDF soldiers. It's filled with all kinds of information there that you can share with people to let them know that October 7th was allowed by Israel, and then Israel murdered hundreds of Israelis in order to justify genocide. So that is at reallycamp.substack.com. Eleanor, you just wrote about the UN vote, right?
Yeah, I did an unusual, I'll say, unusual at least in corporate media.
I thought you were going to say the brevity.
Oh, that too. It is unusually brief for me. I will say that. At eleanorgoldfield.substack.com about the UN. So.
Yes. eleanorgoldfield.substack.com. Yeah, here it is. So check out both our Substacks. We're putting up regular articles there, free to subscribe. Before we keep going to, we're also going to talk about mass inequality in a second, but let's talk about some events. We got your awesome event in Baltimore coming up
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So if you're listening to the podcast, you will have missed it, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's our new thing. We tell people on the podcast, you are screwed.
You missed this. This is tomorrow, November 22nd at Red Emma's. It's going to be a conversation about Project Censored, which is the org that I work for. They're celebrating their 50th year. Celebrating might be a weird word, but ringing in their 50th year, and also discussing the latest book, State of the Free Press 2026, and really digging into critical media literacy, how that's changed and not changed over the past 50 years, and some of the most censored stories of the past year. So that'll be great. It's at Red Emma's, which is an amazing spot.
Is that event free?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's free.
Every event at Red Emma's is free.
And if you're thinking of like making the journey from DC or something, or Philly or something, here's the all-stars you get. You get Mickey Huff, who's been doing Project Censored forever, and I've interviewed him multiple times, and he does amazing work. You get someone named Eleanor Goldfield. You get Max Alvarez, who's the head of The Real News, and you'll have me wandering around, not part of the event. So I'll just be like wandering around, bumping into things. So,
which I feel like that's and Emma's is a worker co-op. They have amazing books.
Supporting them as
They've
well.
got thousands of books, and they've got really good vegan food and coffee.
All right, and now for those of you in New York City,
or with the ability to get there.
Or with the ability to get to New York City. I will be performing. Ratso is asking Baltimore. Yes, that's in Baltimore. Red Emma's in Baltimore. And to find out more about that event, just look up redemmas.org and click events on their page.
Or you can go to my Instagram.
Or Eleanor's Instagram, the best site in the world that I would burn if it didn't mean burning my own laptop. I will be performing live December 12th, New York City. My first performance in New York in years with John F. O'Donnell from Redacted Tonight, Anders Lee from Redacted Tonight. It's all at the Cobra Club. And it is, once you add tax, it's $12.50.
God, it's amazing that you know exactly.
That's right.
Oh.
What do you think? I was just calculating.
I was like, how do you know the tax? Okay.
And to get to those tickets, go to, because it will sell out, go to tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club, tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club, and you can grab tickets to that. It's December 12th. I hope to see you there. I don't know why you'd miss that, honestly, because like it's not like I'm performing in New York often. Like this is your shot. Amazing. This is it. This is your chance. This is your chance. Okay. Let's keep moving on. So I wanted to talk about, and you sent me this great article on why are we all working so hard. But as a little lead in, let's see, Solidarity Department on Instagram. There you go. I'm bringing up Instagram. It's my own fault. They did these comparisons of the amount Elon Musk will be paid by Tesla. I covered it a few days ago. Tesla, like the stockholders of Tesla, have approved a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk if they achieve certain markers, profit markers over the next 10 years. Now, we're not going to get into it, but Tesla is a fake stock. It does not have anything to do with reality. The amount of cars that they produce, like the last year, they made $7 billion in profit, and yet somehow they're paying Elon Musk $1 trillion. It's utterly fucking insane. It shows how fake the U.S. economy is. Anyway, that aside, if he were to get this $1 trillion in 10 years, that would mean he's making $100 billion a year, right? That's easy. That's the easy math. So what they did, you have trouble with that one?
I did, yeah.
Trillion divided by 10?
Stop. So I'll see myself out.
What they did here, though, is they compared what one Elon Musk, one parasite, is making a year to various professions. Here is what 177,900 emergency medical technicians, EMTs in America, make per year. $7 billion. Compared to $100 billion for a single Elon Musk. Here is 387,900 school bus drivers make $18 billion a year, compared to $100 billion for this sack of shit. Here is what 307,390 nurses make per year, $41 billion, compared to $100 billion a year for this vomitous mass. Here's 211,850 chief executives draw salaries of $56 billion per year. This is CEOs. 211,000 make $56 billion a year. Elon Musk, absolute dog vomit, would make $100 billion a year. Let's see, we're almost done here. 1.4 million elementary school teachers earn almost the same as what Elon Musk would make a year under this Tesla pay package.
I can't. I can barely count to 100.
Your thoughts? I want to go first.
That is my thought. That is my thought.
Is it the numbers that bug you or the inequality that bugs you?
Can it be both? The fact that there is something that something is $100 billion, like in one packet, like that.
It's $1 trillion actually, but
like at a
year.
time,
100 billion
right?
a year.
Like that, I can't. That's not okay. You know. It just like
Katie has a good point. Don't insult dog vomit like that. I am sorry. I apologize to dog vomit.
There's really no good comparison.
I apologize to dog vomit, and I see you. Okay. But okay, let's get to the concept of work in the United States, although I guess it's under capitalism in general. There's a lot about this article I like, but it's in Jacobin. But they also fail to almost mention capitalism at all. And so I feel like you do have to dig a little deeper than this. But anyway, let's talk about this for a bit. They start off with the anecdotal proof of a woman named Maria Fernandez in 2014 died of carbon monoxide leak while in a parking lot in New Jersey. She was sleeping in her car because she works an average of 87 hours a week at 3 different Dunkin' Donuts locations. Also has like a kid and a family, and would sleep in her car to try and survive this. And she died in the car. And they also talk about how the author of this book worked over how round-the-clock work is killing the American dream. He talks about his students in elite academic settings were almost competing with each other to see how hard they could work and to showcase their work ethic. And he says, I became interested in why it is that that people of means treat work as such a badge of honor.
Well, and I think this permeates all kinds of, because I remember sometimes I would work even like 100-hour work weeks at recording studios in LA, and you would get bragging rights, like, oh, I didn't go home last night, I slept on the couch in Studio D. Yep. Like, why is that cool? And actually, there was an op-ed in the LA Times that was written by, he was in the music industry, he was in the film industry, but it was scathing because he was given like 3 months to live or something. He had, cancer. And he wrote a scathing op-ed about this concept, about like, it's not cool. It's not cool to say that you lived your life shoveling like creative shit for other people.
And being extracted.
Right. Like what was your life about then? Oh, I plugged in microphones for Metallica. And it's like, here's the thing. I'm not like throwing shit at people who enjoy their work. And I enjoyed being in the studio a lot of the time. But this romanticization of that being your entire life and having nothing outside of it that connects you to humanity, that connects you to what's going on in the world, to connect you to nature, is absolutely batshit. And it is a disease. Like it is a brain parasite. And it's very, I feel like as somebody who's worked in Sweden and the US, I feel like it's not only in the US, but it is particularly present in the United States. Whereas, I like in Sweden, sometimes Lee would make fun of the fact that, you'd go walk past a shop and it would be like, we're on summer break, we'll be back in late August. And he's like, how does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
it's like
I was always
your
like,
American brain
Yeah.
cannot compute.
yeah, I was like, that's the way it should be, honestly. Like,
Yes.
I was smart enough to understand that, but I was just like, how does it, like, you can just say I'm gone for a month? Like, hey, taking a nap, be back in June. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, why is that not a thing in the US?
Because the US.
Well, because it's profit at all costs, and that's why this article was both it's both important and it's really frustrating, because it's like, this is the gravity of capitalism. This is where you end up. And they talk about, in the article, they talk about how it's not just the poor who are working harder than ever with 2-3 jobs. It's also the wealthy that are working harder than ever. These people with white collar jobs that proudly, sleep under their desk and shit like that. People on Wall Street will be at their job, quote unquote, for 12, 14 hours, adding nothing to humanity whatsoever, just finding ways to extract money from humanity. It's a horror show. But like, you have jobs that are actively harmful to the world and to humanity, where people work very hard at those. But you also have a lot of work where it's not that it's harmful necessarily, it's that it's just quasi meaningless. It's like, you walk around a Banana Republic and say, hi, you need a shirt? Like, it's not that useful. I worked, I interned at like consulting groups and shit, just like trying to, when I first moved to New York as a youngin', trying to make ends meet. I was a paid intern at Guiding Light, the soap opera, where they just had me shredding their scripts because they were afraid someone was going to steal their storylines or something.
Because they're amazing storylines.
Like, I'm like half awake, sleeping 4 hours a night, trying to shred their Guiding Light scripts. Literally a head bobbing up and down. And so, but it's like, all of this is,
it's useless.
It's fucking nothing. It's
bullshit
nothing.
Jobs. Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing, it's just people work these jobs not because they dreamt of being whatever this, fill in the blank, but because they have to have a job in order to afford basic necessities. And this is, of course, the objective behind universal basic income, which is a stopgap, of course, because we'd still have a capitalist system. But the idea is it would be a transitional space outside of this. I have to basically waste my life at something I don't enjoy in order to have a roof over my head that I can barely afford anyway, and pay for food that's poisoned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Because you really are doing it with a gun to your head. The gun to your head is you won't have a roof over your head. You won't have food. You won't have water.
Right.
That's absolutely like acting like we have freedom. And I'm actually right now working on an Unredacted Tonight episode. Won't air next week because of the holiday, but the following week. And it's all about capitalism. And a lot of it is about, like, this is not a choice. It's not a free choice. It's a choice if you want to survive, to take all these awful jobs. And I was noticed someone said, let's see, kill your Greg. Who says, I was a human guinea pig in the 90s signing up for drug tests. Mm-hmm. And so I think it'd be interesting if everybody in the chat shared the worst job they've ever had. Jobs. Yeah, just the worst job you've ever had, because I'm sure there's some stories there. But let's see. So he also talks about the unpredictability, the increased unpredictability of jobs and the schedules, because now corporations are using AI and other models to basically realize that, first of all, workers get less time if you say, oh, we only need you from 9 o'clock to 10:45. We know that's going to be a busier time. We're not going to give you a full shift. We'll give you this little fraction of a shift. So they have to pay the worker less. But also they need fewer employees. Like, it used to be, the store was just like, we need 10 employees at all times in case it gets busy. Now they can use an algorithm that says, well, the odds of it getting busy are really low, so we'll just have 3 workers some of the time. And this creates a much worse life for the employees. They kind of never know when they're going to need to be at work, how long they're going to be working.
Well, and of course, then they need multiple jobs
to
make ends meet. And that, even if people are clocking less than 40 hours a week, which on paper you're like, oh, that can't be that stressful. But if you're splitting that across, let's say you're driving an Uber and then you've also got 2 other jobs. It's like you are rushing to and from jobs. You are trying to find more hours. So basically what they're pointing out is that the job, as he writes here, the overwork and underwork are both 2 sides of the same coin with a shared feature of increasing stress and intensity. So basically, like, people, even if they're not currently working at that moment, you're so fucking stressed. And, as the saying goes, I think it was James Baldwin who wrote this. Anyone who's ever been poor knows how remarkably expensive it is to be poor.
Yeah.
And same thing goes with like unemployed. Like anyone who's ever been unemployed knows how fucking stressful it is and how overworked you get being unemployed because of this constant stress to try to find a job and try to find enough hours in that job. Right. And then try to prove to unemployment boards that I'm actually looking and I filled in the and I've but like it's like a nightmare.
Like the number of so many people are getting kicked off assistance, what we call welfare. So many people are getting kicked off, but one of the ways they're kicked off is not that they're not doing the requirements of either looking for a job or having a part-time job. It's that they can't navigate the bureaucracy of it, which is by design. It's so that a lot of the people getting kicked off welfare actually do deserve it and should get it. They just can't navigate all of the be at this office at this time and prove you've done this and have this paperwork ready and all that shit. I just wanted to also add in here that he says the other reason for this new unpredictable schedules is that employers think making hours unpredictable and volatile keeps people from talking to and getting to know their coworkers on regular shifts, which is how a lot of organizing happens. Yeah. Workers knowing each other, working together.
Perish the thought.
Would you like to tell the story of why in the earlier days, the mine workers in West Virginia came from so many different countries?
Well, yeah, I mean, they came from so many different countries because the coal barons would actually go up to Ellis Island, and as people were getting off of the boat, be like, "Hey, you need work? You need work?" And of course, I do. And then they'd take them down to West Virginia or to Kentucky. And basically they'd talk a bunch of shit to them on the way. Like if they were from Poland, they were like, watch out for, the Italians, watch out. It was always, watch out for the black folks. They're savages, watch out for the Jews, watch out for the Catholics. So they basically and they had these, like the mine town slums. They would keep them segregated. So they would put all the Italians over here. They would put the Poles over here. They would continue to spread this propaganda.
Well, and also they liked that they couldn't speak each other's language.
Yes. And so they'd spread all this propaganda and so to try and foment infighting. And here's the thing, that shit ultimately didn't work. And you can watch my documentary if you'd like to learn more about that.
Called Hard Road of Hope.
hardroadofhope.com.
The ideology of work has changed over the past several decades to produce a new work ethic. This ideology prioritizes self-actualization and expressive individuality and suggests that you get that through work and you get more of it through more work. I interviewed a lot of high-income workers, especially in the tech industry, and found that working longer hours was sort of a sense of self to them, which, like, if that doesn't sum up the horror show of capitalism, like, you have to work in order to survive, and now that's who you are. And you shouldn't care about your community. You shouldn't really care much about your family. You shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't even have kids because we're your kids here at the factory, here at the tech company. And it really is like let the capitalism take over your soul and define you.
Well, and it also speaks to the grotesque nature of imposed structures. And I think that's also why this works particularly well in the United States, because we exist in a kind of an ecosystem of these imposed identities, right? We're told that we're American, but we're never really told what that's supposed to mean. It's just like an imposed identity, like, okay, I guess I'm American now, but that looks different to the person in fucking the bayous of Louisiana than it does to the person in the fucking redwoods in Northern California. And this imposed structure of you're supposed to identify as this, but because there's no community around that, because there's no, I mean, there's community around like folks in the bayou, but that's not American. That's specific to that, that literal ecosystem. But these are imposed structures that leech community and leech connection. So people have this sense of self, like, oh, I'm an IT guy or whatever, but there's no actual like connection there. And so people then end up feeling alone, and they end up feeling like, well, I have this job that is like my identity, so why don't I feel like I have community? Because that's not actual community, right? Your job is not a placeholder for community. It is actually what removes community from you. So, and that's, this is all part of that, like that's downward spiral. Then you work more because you're like, well, I guess I'm just not trying hard enough to be a part of this team or this family, as they call it, or whatever the fuck else they say.
Yeah, part of the TGI Fridays family. There's a whole other discussion we could have of the dilution of terms, or the taking terms that actually had meaning, like friend or family, and turning it into fucking corporate garbage. But he also says, if you combine these things to get this new demand for better, more meaningful, more individualized work, what happens next is that managers, supervisors, work gurus, and so on take note and are able to rethink it and repackage work itself as being more meaningful and significant. Managers were able to convert the desire for more meaningful work into a new work ethic, a new culture of work for high-income workers. To me, it's a dystopian horror show, is what they're describing.
Yeah, well, to people living it too, but a lot of them can't see it because they're not, they don't have the tools. It's difficult to.
Yeah, and I will be, and this all is the gravity of capitalism. Like some countries, it's not quite as bad. Like there are more restrictions. There's more of a culture of not killing yourself at work, but the gravity of capitalism is still there. The gravity of the market system that is still putting profit above all else. There is no concern for life or people or community or humans or nature. It is all about the dollar signs. And anyway, I'm working on an Unredacted tonight that will air in 2 weeks about all of this and about capitalism. But also a new Unredacted tonight came out last night. And it's about Trump's China trade deal that almost got us back to where we were a year ago. Okay.
Speaking of work, if you ever feel like you're working too hard and not getting anywhere, just remember that the U.S. spent 20 years and trillions of dollars in Afghanistan to replace the Taliban with the Taliban.
But we successfitly.
But we did that shit, okay?
The Taliban.
We did that.
With the Taliban.
Can't take that away from us.
As I said on Unredacted Live last night, most people think the harm Trump is doing can't be undone. Trump managed to undo his harm with the war on China in just a year. He got it back to almost where it was.
See, you can do it.
You can do it. Even if Trump can do it, anyone can do it. Okay, we're going to wrap up, but these live streams are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Thank you, Nadia, for supporting the show. I would love for you to come out in Baltimore tomorrow night and see Eleanor speak, among others. That's at Red Emma's. What time is it? 7 o'clock, Red Emma's. I would love for you to come to my show December 12th in New York City. That's at Cobra Club. So tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club. And I would love for you to support both of our work. One good place to do it for me is leecamp.net, my locals page. Everyone at Locals, thank you for being there. You make this possible. And another good place is both of our Substacks. So yours is just Eleanor Goldfield, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, EleanorGoldfield.substack.com. Mine is realleecamp.substack.com.
Don't go to fakeleecamp.substack.com.
don't go to the fake one. All right. Thanks a lot, folks. Keep fighting. Have a good weekend.
Well, brother, I salute you.